I'm Hillel Risner, I'm president of the Mix Foundation for Excellence in Audio, and welcome to our fifth annual TECnology Hall of Fame. I don't know where 5 years went. As you know, the Tech Awards, which have been in existence since 1985, annually acknowledges technical achievement in the audio industry and excellence in audio production. But we thought it was time to create a venue to recognize all of the, or as many of the inventions and innovations as we could that have gotten us to the point where we are today. And there's a lot of them. Since 2004, we have recognized, I think, about 60. It's pretty interesting to hear people who are actually involved, in many cases, in the creation of things that have become legendary in this industry for one reason or another. I want to thank the AES for hosting this. They've done that for the past 3 years, and we greatly appreciate it. If you're going to do this, I can't think of a better place to be to do it, because the people are here who actually care about what we're doing. I also want to thank our sponsors, Mix Magazine and Disc Makers and the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Arizona. I don't know what else there is for me to say other than to invite George Peterson, the executive editor of Mix, up here to commence the proceedings.
First of all, I'd like to thank Hillel Risner for hiring me way back when. It was a great move in audio history. One of the reasons that we're here tonight is to celebrate, part of the legacy that's audio history. And the thing that really seems to bother me about audio history is just how it's very fleeting and how quickly it can just disappear. And people go, who was that? Because if the product wasn't made last year, seemingly, they disappear. And so we formed the TECnology Hall of Fame 5 years ago. And each year, selections are made by a committee of journalists, historians, experts in the field to come up with products that we can celebrate and honor within the TECnology Hall of Fame. Our first inductee is this very, very neat product that most people are unaware of. They're unaware of the inventor. They're unaware of the product. This is the telegraphone wire recorder. And most of us are familiar with wire recorders as the spools of wire that would get tangled up and the precursor to tape recording. Well, this Danish physicist, Valdemar Poulsen, came up with this design, which essentially took the concept of sort of the Edison cylinder concept and took a brass cylinder and wrapped a spiral of copper wire around it and started to do magnetic recording on this, which is actually very similar to the process that's used in hard disks today. In 1898, he developed the first magnetic recording device. And interestingly, at the time, there were actually no amplifiers. So the applications for this specific device at the time was limited to recording phone messages. So there we have the first answering machine. And actually, a recording still exists. It's on the Mix website and also on the Mix Foundation website in the Hall of Fame. If you want to hear the first, a remnant 10-second clip from the Emperor of Austria in 1902, recorded, and it still exists. Valdemar Poulsen later went on to develop an actual wire recorder with spools of wire, which worked intensely better than this thing did. But for 1898, it was pretty amazing. And actually, the fidelity of that clip that exists is still pretty good. This is the Western Electric 618A dynamic microphone, which actually was not the first dynamic microphone. The first dynamic microphone was patented in 1874 by Ernst Siemens. But unfortunately, he invented the dynamic microphone. Its bandwidth was excessive for the needs of telephone in 1874, so he was pretty much relegated and forgotten. The design was rekindled in 1928 with a fellow by the name of Edward Charles Wente, who worked with Albert Thuris at Bell Laboratories to develop a dynamic microphone that would have sufficient frequency to be usable And they came up with a design for this particular microphone, the Western Electric 618A, which was a huge commercial success. One of the favorite users for it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who used it for his fireside chats. And it was essentially the precursor to today's modern dynamic microphones. Georg Neumann founded the George Neumann Company in 80 years ago, in 1928. In that same year, he debuted his CMV3 condenser microphone, known as the famous bottle microphone, which is actually still used in a lot of studios today. The CMV3 had a lot of technological firsts, including a gold sputtered colloidal diaphragm, which was later switched to PVC. Triode-based electronics. In 1932, this product was updated to the CMV3A, which included interchangeable capsules. Here to accept an award for the Georg Neumann Company is Stefan Pois. Actually, we're honored to have Stefan Pois here. He is their chief microphone designer.
President, development, yes. Yes.
President, chief engineer, and the guy that makes it all happen with modern Neumann design. So here, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be
Here,
with the company.
we have a microphone here you can use.
I'm not so familiar with microphones, pardon. Yeah, thank you so much to take another nice item from Neumann into the Hall of Fame. I'm very proud to be with the company for so many years. But this is decades before I entered the company, so it's not my fault. But I'm very proud, and I'm very happy to be with these nice things together. And all the customers using these microphones. And this was the real beginning of what we are having today. Thank you so much.
We have an amazing little product here, the Shure Unidyne Model 55, which was actually the first low-cost cardioid dynamic microphone using a single element. And the reason a single element was important is prior to that, cardioid microphones were essentially created by having two or more omnidirectional diaphragms combined to create a directional pattern. And it was Shure engineer Benjamin Bauer that came up with the idea for this, and he was actually the one who came up with the idea of experimenting with port openings in the back of the microphone capsule. And by covering the ports, you could move from an omnidirectional response to various types of directional responses. Interestingly enough, this mic is still in production, is the Model 55SH, although they've replaced the capsule with a modern element. And this was also one of the microphones that was featured on the most popular commemorative stamp in U.S. stamp history, featuring Elvis Presley. You want to say a few things?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm not Benjamin Bauer, but when I worked with Ben in 1940, I had a lot more hair than I have now. We are honored to be included in the Tech Hall of Fame among such other esteemed products. So thank you very much for selecting us. Appreciate the honor. Thank you.
Thank you. The next product is a equally long-lived product, the JBL's D130 loudspeaker, which was developed by James B. Lansing, of course the founder of JBL. 1 year after he founded his company, he wanted to start working on a high-performance woofer. This product also had a lot of innovations. The cast aluminum frame, which gave it an absolute amazing strength. It kept the weight down, rear cone venting, an aluminum dome to help radiate high frequencies. The D130, in many ways, really defined the modern woofer. It remained in production until 2000 almost. Evidently, Dick Dale in the mid-50s had guitar amps, and he kept blowing them up, playing very, very loud kind of surf music. He went to Leo Fender and said, "Hey, I keep blowing your amps up. What are we going to do about this?" And he went to JBL, and JBL said, "Well, you know, what you need is one of these." And so they installed a couple of these in his amp, and you know what? It stopped blowing up. And after that, Leo Fender started incorporating JBL products into Fender amplifiers starting back in 1955. So here to accept the award, I believe, is Mark Gander.
Lansing did start JBL. JBL is James B. Lansing. His initials are the foundation of the company, and transducer design is really the foundation of JBL. From Lansing's innovations in using new modern materials and modern manufacturing techniques through to the present day, we try to carry on that tradition and still make our own woofers, compression drivers, high frequency elements, and innovate them into system solutions that try to bring high performance and high quality to all aspects of sound production and reproduction. And in memory of Jim Lansing and on behalf of all the employees at JBL and part of Harman International Industries, we're very pleased to see the recognition of this seminal product. Thank you.
This is Guy Fountain, the founder of Tannoy, who in 1947, a Tannoy engineer by the name of Ronald Rackham created the dual concentric design, which combined a 15-inch woofer and a compression driver with two voice coils. And there were other types of coaxial speakers made at the time. But the thing that really made the Tannoy dual concentric pretty amazing is that the voice coils of both the woofer and the compression driver shared the same magnet structure, hence the name of dual concentric. This product was originally unveiled at the London's Radio Olympia show in 1948. And after seeing that, Decca Records was amazed by this product and bought the first production units and put it into its studios. And following that, this is the product that laid down the foundation for Tannoy's Red and Gold series, monitor series, and today Tannoy continues the tradition with their precision and ellipse models, which combine the same basic transducer design with DSP control, taking it to a new level. And here from Tannoy is not Ronald Rackham or Guy Fountain, but Ivan Schwartz. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. 60 years ago, as you see here, the first dual concentric device was introduced at a trade show, and 60 years later now, this basic technology still is the core of all of our sound reinforcement and studio monitor products, which I think says a lot for a fundamentally correct design that has held its own throughout the ages. So on behalf of my colleagues at the UK office and the North American Tannoy office, thank you very, very much.
We're going to jump ahead a little bit here to 1968. The Universal Audio /Uray 1176 peak limiter. This product began when engineer, producer, designer, studio designer, and electronics designer and studio owner Bill Putnam started experimenting with the idea of using field effect transistors as variable voltage resistors for gain control. Universal Audio at the time was a very engineering-driven company. They still are. And this particular product went through at least 13 revisions during its life, and the most significant of which was Brad Plunkett's addition of low noise circuitry, hence the LN designation to the 1176 blackface LN. It's still considered the best in the entire series. In 2000, the Universal Audio Company was reborn, issuing exact recreations of the 1176 LN, as well as other products that were popular and made popular by Bill Putnam. And its popularity continues today. And here to accept this is the son of Bill Putnam, Bill Putnam Jr.
Well, thank you very much for honoring this product today. I know my dad would be very proud because he was very proud of this product, which I remember him talking about it when I was probably no more than 6. He was telling me about the fast attack time that he was able to get, and I'm nodding my head and on this limiter. I had no idea what a limiter was. I had no idea what the fast attack meant, but he was very proud of it and considered this one of his prize designs. And thank you very much for also mentioning Brad Plunkett, who played a really important role in this product as well. And later on in life, I did learn what that fast attack meant. I'm found out exactly how hard it is to recreate in a digital emulation. So I finally did have an appreciation for what he had done. So thank you very much.
Thank you. In 1967, Saul Walker designed the first 12-track recording console for New York's Apostolic Studios, which was a facility used by Frank Zappa on many of his legendary recordings. And after building this wonderful console, custom console for the studio, this led to Saul Walker getting involved in founding API. Of course, what we're looking here is not entirely the entire console, but the equalizer module, which is so popular. The 550A that's shown here is a 3-band equalizer with 5 switchable frequency centers on each band. His design created an amazingly musical equalizer. It was very fast to use and sounded great. And in 2004, API resumed production of the 550A in a exact reproduction, which is now offered in modular and rack mount formats. And Saul Walker was unable to come here today, but Larry Droppa from API is here.
Thank you very much to Mix Magazine and the Mix Foundation for acknowledging the 550A, which has been responsible for subtly or drastically changing the sound of hit records and singles for about 40 years now. And I would like to personally accept the award for the 550A, but I'm not going to. The award is going to be accepted by an actual 550A, signed by Saul Walker, who is alive and well, and we, on behalf of the company, appreciate this award, and Saul Walker thanks you all. If you listen carefully, the 550A has something to say.
The next product came out in 1976, the DBX 160 compressor limiter. David Blackmer founded DBX in 1971 based on the concept of using decibel expansion, hence the name DBX, to replace the peaks lost from the limited dynamic range of magnetic tape. Among David Blackmer's many accomplishments was his brilliant decilinear VCA and RMS level detection circuits that really changed the entire world, yielding classic products such as DBX noise reduction, DBX compressors, OEM VCAs for automated consoles, and many, many more. According to audio lore, David Blackmer never really wanted to design a compressor limiter. After many years of creating products that would expand dynamic range, the idea of creating a product that would reach strict dynamic range just didn't seem to make any sense to him. Thankfully, he did come out with products like the 160. Today, the DBX is part of the Harman family. So we have Buzz Goodwin from DBX is here, but we also have David Blackmer's son, Eric Blackmer, who is also here. So why don't we start with you, and then we'll have Eric Blackmer come up. So.
Thank you. It's quite an honor for me to be up here. I asked, actually, to make this introduction. First of all, Blackmer family, I've known Eric for a while, who continues the legacy in audio excellence. My name is Buzz Goodwin. I'm one of the many vice presidents at Harman International. I have, however, had the pleasure of promoting DBX worldwide for the last 7 to 8 years. And we continue that legacy of quality products. This is a special product for all of us. I never saw the Little Mother quote, but it's very interesting. That's one of the ads we didn't do. But this is a real honor for me to introduce to you a family that continues, like I said, to push the envelope of audio excellence. Mr. Eric Blackmer.
Well, on behalf of my father, I'm glad this is being presented. I want to say some other things on behalf of my father. For me, DBX was the company that was started in the house when I was in high school. I didn't know what it was then. I do now. And he did some amazing things. But what I want to remind you all of is what it was like back then. There were all these companies in Massachusetts where I grew up that had a person who really cared. And sometimes they were right, sometimes they were wrong, but they were a person who really cared about audio. And the thing I want to say to everybody is, on behalf of my father, remember to leave that spirit in business because it's important. Thank you. Thank you.
next product is one of the most amazing and influential products to grace pro audio. Yet it's one that always had me scratching my head. This product came out of Yamaha's consumer hi-fi group in 1977. They came out with this wonderful product called the NS10M. This was the bottom of the line of their NS series. And it was a awesomely, perfectly modeled reproduction of the typical hi-fi that people had in their homes. It was 5 years before this product became a household word in the audio business, finally replacing Oratones, if any of you are old enough to remember those, as the most common audio reference speaker. The most interesting thing about the NS10 came later on when certain audio engineers started taping tissues over the high-frequency tweeter in an effort to help the sound of these. And then there was a controversy about which brand. Should you use a Kim wipe? Should you use a... In fact, Mix contributing editor Bob Hodas and acoustician Master decided to do a two-part series on testing the different brands of toilet paper, Kim wipes, paper towels, put them over these things. 10 years after they came out, Yamaha came up with this idea of making it a pro product. And they came out with the NS10M Studio in 1987, which used the same woofer, but with a redesigned dome tweeter and a tweak crossover and some minor changes to facilitate console top placement. They became an audio classic in the pro audio world, but yet from a failed consumer product, which is pretty amazing. Are you Jose Perez?
That is me.
Oh, thank you very much. Come over here. Here we go.
Well, I was sitting in the back listening to all those stories, and I have to admit that it was pretty funny because when I was told at the office that I had to come and accept this award, I started researching the different stories and looking over the internet to see what everybody had to say. And I did read most of those stories on the internet, so it was funny to hear them again. On behalf of Yamaha, I just want to say thank you very much to everybody that trusted our product and that used us with this product or different products as a reference. So thank you very much. This is an honor for us to be part of this very elite group of people. Thank you.
The Studer A800 multitrack. Over Studer's history, they've built more than 750,000 tape recorders with the Studer and Revox names. Actually, Studer's first multitrack was the J37 4-track, which debuted in 1964, and of course found fame in 1967 when a certain British pop rock group decided to try synchronizing two of these J37s together, 4-tracks together, 1-inch 4-tracks together to record the Sgt. Pepper's album. 10 years later, Studer came out with the A800, which brought a new generation to professional multitracks by incorporating microprocessor control in the transport. With its 14-inch reel capacity and created an absolutely amazing sounding analog machine that are still in use today. In fact, this machine was built so well that it had half horsepower spooling motors and thick aluminum slab top that would not flinch or bend under any circumstances. In fact, this particular machine weighed 900 pounds, which is, that's a whole lot of analog sitting there. It had just absolutely amazingly pure audio reproduction capabilities going out from 15 hertz to 30 kilohertz. The product was discontinued in 1988, yet hundreds and hundreds of these are still in production, or still in use today in studios all around the world. And it is certainly an audio classic. I believe David Neal here from the Harman Group will come and accept this on behalf of Studer. There you go.
Thank you very much, Mix Magazine and Tech Foundation for this deeply much appreciated award. The 800 is quite close to my heart, and especially close to the heart of its product manager, who is Bruno Hofstrasser, who's not at the show out here at the moment, but he's still very much involved with Studer, and would be very proud that his machine was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I actually helped organise the launch of the 800 at Abbey Road Studios in 1978, so it quite possibly is my fault on this occasion. Thank you very much indeed.
Trident Studios is a recording studio, opened in 1968. And since it had the first 8-track recorder in Europe, suddenly top artists from around Europe and in the world were attracted to Trident Studios, including the Beatles, who recorded Hey Jude there in 1968. And in 1972, Jack Hartfield formed Trident Audio Developments as a spin-off of the studio, working with Malcolm Toft, to create products based on the consoles the studio used itself. Remember, this was at a time when off-the-shelf consoles were somewhat of a rarity. So here's a recording studio going into the console manufacturing business. So Trident followed this, their original console up with their A and B series, and Trident did quite well. And in 1974, added designer John Oram to its team. In 1980, Trident was interested in having a console that was more affordable, yet still had the high quality of its TSM series, the Series 80, which is still highly revered. It was a hugely successful product. In fact, it still lives on in reissues from a number of manufacturers. Here to accept this is Mr. John Oram.
Well, I'd like to thank George, of course, and the Tech Hall of Fame for this privilege and honor. And I'd like to add a few points. I joined that company in 1974 as a consulting engineer to create some new products. I created the FlexiMix and the TSM, as George says, which was a Rolls-Royce console, but very expensive. This is a real privilege and honor. Malcolm Toft, who was my associate and good friend in that company, developed the system flow and said, okay, this is what I think we need. And we had a brilliant team. The mechanics of the console were created by a guy called Don Whitney. And I'm particularly happy tonight to tell you that sitting in this audience is one of Trident's most famous recording engineers from the 70s. And he worked on these products. A gentleman who now lives, he's a Brit, but he lives now in Los Angeles. And so I'm delighted that Mr. Roy Thomas Baker, the multi-platinum album recorder and single for probably the most famous single, Bohemian Rhapsody, which was engineered by Roy. And I'm, as I say, really, really happy to have this. This is a great privilege. I stayed with the company. I actually went there for a 10-week project to create a parametric equalizer because we were very concerned in England. We were losing ground to an American company called Orban. They had an EQ out, the Orban Parasound. And my design brief was, how fast could you give us a parametric equalizer? We've got to meet these Americans. We've got to beat them. We've got to do something. And I created that product for them and went from project to project, including this one, and stayed with the company for 14 years. I subsequently left them in 88, and after a lot of toing and froing, the company folded up in 95. But in 1998, I built the company back again, and for the last 10 years, we've been happily building the Trident Series 80 with only one small change, and that is we've changed it from being a strict stereo board to a 5.1 surround facility. But the EQ and the mic pre's, etc., are the same. So I'm deeply honoured to receive this. Thank you all for the way you've received me, and thank you again, George. Thank you.
After inventing a number of firsts, including text-to-speech synthesis, the CCD, flatbed scanner, OmniFont, optical character recognition, and a print-to-speech reading machine for the blind, a gentleman by the name of Ray Kurzweil became acquainted with a gentleman that you've probably heard of named Stevie Wonder. And Stevie said, Ray, you're a brilliant designer. How can we apply computer control to acoustical instruments? And as a result, Ray Kurzweil founded Kurzweil Music Systems in 1982, and with Stevie Wonder serving as its musical advisor. And a year later, at the AES show, visitors to the show were amazed to see this product, the Kurzweil 250, which was a ROM-based sampling keyboard that successfully reproduced Steinway pianos, human choirs, and a huge range of acoustical instruments, lush strings. Of course, it also cost $16,000, and which limited its success to all but the few studios that could afford it and some well-heeled musicians and such. But Kurzweil followed this up with a long string of more affordable products that to this day, sound brilliant, and we're all in awe of such things.
Hi, I'm Amy Kurzweil, also known as Rick Kurzweil's daughter. I'm honored to be here on his behalf today. It's too bad Stevie Wonder couldn't be here, but and I know he would like to be here accepting this award, but he's in China, so kind of far. I have some remarks that I'm going to read that he wrote. He said, "Music is the only cultural expression common to every human society that we are aware of. Musical expression is the communication of human emotion and insight through sound, and has always used the most advanced technologies available. From the drums of ancient times, the cabinet-making crafts of the 18th century, the mechanical linkages of the 19th century, the analog electronics of the mid-20th century, to the digital technology of the last couple of decades. It has been very gratifying to have played a role in helping to continue this ongoing advance of our musical tools. It has also been gratifying to work with many brilliant people over the last 25 years. One of them is here today, Tim Thompson, who is one of the leaders of Kurzweil Music Engineering. I have admired the Tech Hall of Fame and AES, and I greatly appreciate this recognition. So, thank you."
Our next inductee is another well-known name in audio these days, Cedar Audio, which Cedar stands for Computer Enhanced Digital Audio Restoration. The Cedar story actually began in 1985 when the British Library National Sound Archive funded a digital audio restoration, some research at Cambridge University, which is work that led to the prototype Cedar computer, which was the earliest PC-based audio restoration system. And there were other approaches besides Cedar's. The magic about the Cedar process was it allowed real-time manipulation during the transfer, which enabled operators to make real-time changes based on the program material and the varying noises that were present. The first production systems in 1990 used conventional PCs, and these were later followed by dedicated hardware units, PC and server-based systems, and versions of the hardware that were incorporated as plugins for digital audio workstations. And since then, tens of thousands of CDs, DVDs, film, and broadcast projects have benefited from the Cedar project, from the Cedar process. And I believe Gordon Reed is here.
As with everybody else, I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody for this. The only comment I'd make about this original Cedar system is that, as George pointed out, it was developed between 85 and 88 by a university using government money. And in 88 it kind of worked, and neither the university nor the government knew what the heck to do with it. So they looked for somebody who had a musical background, who understood a bit about computing, and had some business experience to turn this research project into a real product and a company. And being unable to find anybody who met their criteria, they employed me. And at my interview in the British Library, National Sound Archive, in 1989, I think it was, I said to a chap who I didn't know, but turned out to be effectively the head of the British Library, that I thought this company had 2 weeks in it, and maybe 2 months, but I sure as hell wasn't going to give it 2 years. And that was nearly 20 years ago, 20 years ago this January coming. And it's kept me off the streets ever since then. And to have this recognised now is extremely pleasing. Thank you, everybody.
Our last award of the the day for the 1990 introduction of Opcode's Studio Vision digital audio sequencer. Studio Vision was certainly not Opcode's first sequencer. And interestingly enough, ideas sometimes come from where you least expect them. In the late 1980s, Paul de Benedictis, who was a great pianist and a great composer in his own right, and also Opcode's marketing guy, was carpooling with a DigiDesign software engineer by the name of Mark Jeffrey. And during one of their commutes, evidently these two talked about the idea of, wait, what if our companies kind of got together and we could do things? And this was in the days before Pro Tools. And they considered the possibility of putting together the power of Opcode's Vision MIDI sequencer with the digital audio capabilities of DigiDesign's sound tools and audio media systems. And excited about the project, or supposedly excited about the project, Dave Oppenheim evidently thought it was a good idea, company founder Dave Oppenheim. And he worked with Dave Wellenbrink, who was also the co-founder of another company by the name of Blank Software, which was an amazing software company, to make this happen. Audio data would be displayed within the sequencer as tracks of waveforms and could be cut and pasted just like you could cut and paste MIDI data. And the product, which originally was not known as Studio Vision, but was later changed to the name Studio Vision, when it came out, was the Talk of Winter NAMM on its debut, and when it came out in January of 1990. And here to correct all the errors in this, the way I told this story is Dave Oppenheim, the founder of the company.
This is like the newest thing in your series, but yet it seems so long ago, and I really hardly even remember how it all happened, but it was something like that. You know, definitely the folks at DigiDesign had a big role in making it all happen. They did have the audio hardware and stuff, but you know, David and Dan Timmis were really integral in getting the UI just right and making it a pleasure to use. And unfortunately, it died an untimely death at the end of '99. But I still, like, even this year, have heard of people who are keeping ancient rigs running Mac OS 9 around that can still run the software, because there's just actually nothing else still exactly like it even today. Anyway, thanks a lot to Mix and the Foundation for the award.
It's a sad statement that we don't really have, full archives of what we're doing, which is what we're trying to start with the idea of the TECnology Hall of Fame, is to encourage people to think about history, see how products fit into the flow of history, and look behind us and look ahead, and honor some of the great innovators who have really put our industry where it is today. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'd like to thank our sponsors, disc makers, and the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, and as well as the 8Yes for providing the room and making this happen. And thanks to all of you for coming, and let's keep history alive. Thank you.